Good morning. Michael Albert. And do you have somebody else with you, or is it just you today? Okay. Michael Albert is our sign language interpreter. We thank him. We've been joined by Schaumburg Mayor Tom Dailly and Cook County Commissioner Kevin Morrison, as well as Illinois Representative Michelle Mussman. Cook County received approximately $429 million from the U.S. Treasury from the CARES Act in late April. Under the Act, units of local government with a population exceeding 500,000 are eligible to receive this funding, and they can distribute these funds to municipalities under this threshold for direct expenses related to the coronavirus. The priority for allocating funds was based on socioeconomic determinants and public health needs. COVID-19 is having a disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities, and this approach is designed to ensure more of these dollars are going to communities most impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Let me just say the Tribune had a story on Sunday about excess deaths in Cook County, and by their estimate, the proportionate fatalities in the Black community were 3 times the white community. In the Latinx community, they were 4 times the white community. Allocations for each municipality were determined through an equitable lens, with factors that included the immediate needs of the municipality to respond to the pandemic, the municipal population, municipal median income, municipal public health statistics. We worked on creating an equitable distribution formula with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, and I'm very proud of the results. In fact, the National Association of Counties recently praised our equitable distribution formula. We've created a consistent, thorough, equitable, and legal process to distribute millions of dollars in CARES Act money to municipalities for direct coronavirus-related costs, such as PPE purchases, personal protective equipment. But now we need to hear from our suburban local governments and elected officials. Cook County is here to help. It's my sincere hope that we can distribute as much of the money as possible before the December 30th CARES Act deadline. Schaumburg is a shining example of how this can work effectively and efficiently. Schaumburg was able to visit our website, quickly fill out the necessary paperwork, and receive the check in the mail shortly thereafter. We hope that local governments that have yet to apply will do so quickly. I'm encouraging all local governments eligible for relief funds to submit their paperwork quickly to avoid leaving vital money on the table that can go to costs such as personal protective equipment, payroll costs for first responders, and operational initiatives to facilitate return to work arrangements for the suburban municipalities. In the coming weeks, I hope to be visiting a number of municipalities to highlight just how easy and important filling out some paperwork can be. We will all be sure to keep our local governments and leadership updated with information regarding this process. All subrecipients of COVID-19 must let us know their intentions regarding the proposed relief by September 30th of 2020, the end of this month. If a municipality has not provided an application or a plan for use of its remaining allocation, the county must then rescind the municipality's remaining allocation so it can go to other important pandemic needs. To date, roughly 56 of the 130 municipalities have notified the county of their intent to spend the allocation. We've all been through an immensely difficult time. I know that the potential these dollars have to help our communities recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting economic collapse. I look forward to working with all of our municipalities to ensure that they can access these resources and we can rebuild as one Cook County. Now, I'd like to bring to the podium the Mayor of Schaumburg, Tom Dailly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to thank President Preckwinkle for inviting me to speak about Schaumburg's experience with the CARES Act. The Village of Schaumburg, like many communities in Cook County and throughout the state, has been hard hit by the pandemic. Although we've continued to experiencing mounting losses in critical revenue sources, we've never lost sight of the importance of continuing to provide essential services to our community in these times of emergency. At the beginning of the pandemic, the village began tracking COVID-related expenses, knowing it would be important to work with officials at the county, state, and federal levels for any chance of potential reimbursements that might be related to the pandemic. As a village located in the western suburbs of Cook County, the Village of Schaumburg applied for and received over $556,000 in funding through the Cook County CARES Act grant process. The application process was simple, easy, and quick. And I'll repeat that, simple, easy, and quick. The county provided a helpline to assist with questions that we had, and we took advantage of several webinars that provided information and insight that was beneficial to our application efforts. As a result, our village received critical funding that will help reimburse public safety efforts that were used to protect our community during the pandemic. In fact, by the time the application was filed with the county and reviewed, the funds were received in about 3 weeks' time. Very quick. The pandemic continues to impact all communities, regardless of size, affluence, or makeup of population. We're grateful for the opportunity to be considered and for the success we had going through the program. I know many other communities will benefit from this relief funding as well as we continue to navigate these uncertain times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the youngest member of our body, Kevin Morrison, Commissioner Kevin Morrison.
Thank you so much, Madam President. First, I want to thank you and your administration, especially for holding this incredibly important press conference today. It's been a hard time working and navigating all the challenges that have come as a result of COVID-19. Your hard work has made it possible for municipalities who have been hit so hard to get some relief through the CARES Act funding. I'm especially proud that Cook County prioritized equity in determining this funding to make sure we are being responsive to the communities the hardest hit during this pandemic. I want to shout out the Village of Schaumburg and Mayor Dailly for being here today and for exemplifying such great leadership during this crisis, especially one of my home state representatives, Michelle Mussman, for her leadership during this time. I know how desperately municipalities like Schaumburg need this funding to keep serving our shared constituents. I will continue to do outreach to other municipalities in the 15th district to make sure they are able to complete the steps necessary in order to receive this funding. And I will work to try to bring more resources to the 15th district to help our residents, especially those most in need at this time. Thank you so much, Madam President.
Thank you, Commissioner Morrison. Last but not least, Illinois Representative Michelle Mussman. I want to thank her for her help and support of Cook County and Springfield and give her an opportunity to address us today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. And I simply want to acknowledge our municipalities come in all shapes and sizes, and many of them are lean on staff as they've respectfully attempted to right-size their government and be good custodians of their taxpayer dollars. And also many of them are not working in normal conditions right now and still largely working remotely. I know that gathering this information can be an administrative burden for everyone, but I also want to encourage you to prioritize finding the way to do that. Cook County is here to assist you and walk you through this process to make it as easy as possible. It behooves all of us to take advantage of all the financial resources at our disposal to make sure that our residents are not the ones who receive a loss of services or a loss of quality of services or are left holding the bag through an unreasonable burden on their property taxes because we did not take advantage of resources that were available to us at this time. So I encourage you to find the time and the way to contact Cook County and reach out and use these resources so we can lift up and continue to support our residents in the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Mussman. I want to acknowledge our Chief Financial Officer, Amar Ritzky, who's here to answer any questions that might come up. All right. Nick?
Yeah, I know we have WBBM on the line.
Do we have any reporters on the line?
Yes, you do.
All right, I'm sorry. If you would do me a favor and speak up, I'll also turn it up. Okay, go ahead. Your question, your name again?
Sure, it's Bernie Tafoya from WBBM.
All right, Bernie.
And I'd like to ask Mayor Dailly a question, if we could.
Sure. Mayor Dailly, the question is for you. If you repeat the questions, everybody can hear it.
Proceed.
Mayor, if you would, explain how, in specifics, what the ways the money, the $550,000 is being used, what kinds of costs have you been racking up? And I would imagine your expenses are way more than that. Can you give me an idea about how large they are?
Sure. So the question is how about collecting and the types of expenses we have, and are the expenses larger than what was reported? So I'll work backwards. Yes, we did have larger expenses. If we could add an extra, I mean, we're a community, come on. If we could add an extra one to this number, we'd love it. But, within reason, this is amount of money that's been set aside, and we think the county did a good job of determining how to distribute it based upon population and all the other criteria the president has already mentioned. So we're very happy with that. The kind of expenses we had was in particular, people having to work from home, things that they didn't have, such as maybe a computer, a printer, even down to as simple as a mouse to go with the equipment that they have, a cell phone that maybe they weren't, had been provided before, to a matter of the masks, all the PPE equipment that was necessary. Our firefighters had to ramp up with all sorts of things that they would normally use, except under hazardous conditions. So there was all sorts of costs involved with that. We've put up plastic shielding in Village Hall so that when we interact with the public, we've got some protection for our staff there.
And you say you could use an extra $1 million.
Oh, yeah, sure. We could always, there's always extra expensive. I will admit, though, that the expenses have tapered down tremendously. In the beginning, there was a huge ramp up for a lot of things, but now we're down to a very manageable situation of just maintaining our masks, and our other hand sanitizers, and things of that nature.
And just one more follow-up question, if I could. Do you have any idea how COVID has impacted your budget, say even from sales taxes, and how you're going to, because you're going to have a hole in that respect as well?
Yeah, so the question has to do about the impact on the budget. We are fortunate that when this first impacted us, we took a look in April. Our budget runs May 1 to April 30th, so we were able to take a quick look back at our budget and say, what changes do we need to make? So we have actually eliminated almost 20% out of the budget, $22 million, almost $23 million. We removed from the budget in anticipation of changes. Schaumburg is extremely dependent upon sales tax, automobile, food and beverage, retail, all of that impacts us a lot. We depend very little on property tax. So it did have a huge impact, and it continues to have an impact. While we did our best, we're still losing about $500,000 a month right now, and we will take another look in October.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
President Preckwinkle, if you would, how many municipalities have applied, if you know so far, and why do you think some municipalities just haven't done it yet?
I think I'll ask you to respond, Mark. Can you introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Ariski County's Chief Financial Officer. So as of last count, we've had about 30 municipalities that have actually submitted an application, and they're going through the various aspects of making sure that the information that they provided is accurate per the guidance of the U.S. Treasury Department that is overseeing these funds across the nation. In addition to that, I think what we've also asked folks is to at least let us know by the end of September to at least identify their intent of using some of that fund. So we've, as the Madam President mentioned earlier, there's about 56 of those municipalities that have intended to use the money but have not submitted or have partially submitted an application. I think one of the reasons why folks are not taking advantage of this is there may be a misperception that this is a very difficult process, because we did have to put some compliance measures in place, like we need to have an intergovernmental agreement with the municipality to make sure that the money is being spent in the way that the federal government has dictated to us, and things like that. So I think just hearing some of those discussions, and given as the state rep mentioned about the lack of folks in these smaller municipalities who understand this, was the misperception that caused folks to just basically not take advantage of that. We are trying to make sure that we have our communication efforts, and this is an example of what we're trying to do to make sure that you hear folks like the mayor of Schaumburg directly, that how easy it was. And we have a lot of resources available online, in person, to help walk all municipalities, regardless of their ability to handle these things, on a one-to-one basis. And that's part of the reasons why we took a little bit of extra time to set up this program, because we anticipated that need. Many of these smaller villages and towns only have one or two people who look at their entire finances, and sometimes those people are shared across multiple municipalities. And so we understand that capacity restraint, and hence the reason why we put a lot of those resources up front for people to understand. So I think the really what it comes down to is getting the word out to make sure that those resources are available, hearing from folks like our friends in Schaumburg to show how easy it is to do so. And then once those two things are done, people can really get those much needed resources that are right now available to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.